5 VA claims you may still win, even if it's not in your service records. Listen up. A lot of veterans believe this. If it's not in my service treatment records, I can't file for it. That is not always true. There are real VA claims veterans may still be able to win, even when there's no sick call note, no treatment entry, and no diagnosis written down during active duty. But let's be clear. No records does not mean no evidence. You still have to build the claim the right way. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 5 types of VA claims that can still be viable without in-service treatment notes, what evidence helps each one, and the wording mistake that causes a lot of otherwise good claims to fall apart. Stay with me. This matters. Here's what many veterans were never clearly told. The VA does not require every successful claim to come with a service treatment record showing you went to medical while you were in. Why? Because military culture is real. A lot of us were trained to push through pain, stay quiet, avoid sick call, and keep moving unless something was catastrophic. The VA system does allow for claims to be proven through other evidence. That may include your personal statement, your personnel records, your MOS, your deployment history, your badges, your current diagnosis, a C&P exam, buddy statements, private medical records, or, in some cases, a legal presumption built into VA law. But hear me clearly. This is not about gaming the system. This is about learning how to present a legitimate claim properly. Today, I'm breaking down 5 claim situations veterans should understand. Tinnitus and noise exposure claims. PTSD claims under different VA stressor rules. Joint and back claims supported by service history and lay evidence. Presumptive claims. And how to word your claim so the evidence is clear from the start. Let's get to work. First up, tinnitus. Ringing, buzzing, humming, or noise in the ears. This is one of the most common VA claims, and one reason it comes up so often is because many veterans did not go to medical for it while on active duty. If your service involved repeated exposure to weapons fire, aircraft, artillery, engines, blast exposure, flight lines, tracked vehicles, or combat noise, that service history can matter. The key is not just saying, I have ringing in my ears. The key is showing the full picture. What noise exposure did you have in service? What symptoms do you have now? And when did you first notice them? Here is a stronger way to frame it. I am claiming tinnitus due to repeated hazardous noise exposure during my military service. While serving as MOS from dates, I was regularly exposed to weapons fire, aircraft, artillery, heavy equipment, or explosions. I began noticing ringing in my ears during or after that period, and the symptoms have continued. That is much stronger than simply saying, I have tinnitus. Because now you are giving VA a current condition, an in-service exposure, and a timeline. Now, an important point. Tinnitus is rated at a maximum of 10% under the VA rating schedule for recurrent tinnitus. And in many cases, it may be rated separately from hearing loss. Another important point. Do not assume you have to wait for some perfect private doctor note before filing. Medical evidence helps. A clear diagnosis helps. But what matters is that the condition is documented and described clearly. And here is the trap. A lot of veterans downplay it. They say, it's not that bad, or I can live with it. Tell the truth. If it affects your sleep, your concentration, your conversations, or your ability to sit in a quiet room without distraction, say that. Don't exaggerate. Don't minimize. Just tell the truth clearly. And if you also believe you have hearing loss, that may be a separate issue worth evaluating too. Second, PTSD claims. This area is important but it is also one where people oversimplify the rules. VA requires medical evidence diagnosing PTSD, a medical link between current symptoms and an in-service stressor, and supporting evidence of the stressor, unless one of the special PTSD rules applies. So let's break this down the right way. First, combat-related PTSD. If the evidence shows you engaged in combat with the enemy and the stressor is related to that combat, your own statement may help establish the stressor, as long as it is consistent with the circumstances of your service. That does not mean every deployment automatically proves combat PTSD. It means the record and the claim stressor have to fit together. A stronger way to frame it would be this. I am claiming PTSD related to combat experiences during my deployment to location while serving as MOS or unit. My stressors included incoming fire, IEDs, direct engagement, or witnessing casualties, and those events continue to affect me through symptoms. Next, fear of hostile military or terrorist activity. This is where a lot of people online get sloppy. If the stressor is related to fear of hostile military or terrorist activity, the veteran statement may help establish the stressor, but it still has to be handled under the proper VA standard. So do not oversimplify it. Then there is personal assault or MST-related PTSD. This matters because many survivors never made a formal report. VA rules allow evidence from sources outside service records to help support the stressor. That may include statements from family, clergy, or fellow service members. Counseling records, requests for transfer, performance changes, substance abuse, panic, depression, or behavior changes after the event. So if you are talking to veterans about this, do not tell them they need a police report or criminal conviction. That would be wrong. Now here is the big caution. Not every stressful military experience qualifies as a PTSD stressor. PTSD is tied to trauma meeting the diagnostic standard, and that has to be supported medically. So the smartest move is simple. Get evaluated. Get the symptoms documented. Describe the event truthfully and specifically. And make sure the claim theory matches the actual VA pathway. Third, musculoskeletal claims. This includes things like back pain, neck problems, knee conditions, ankle issues, shoulder problems, and repetitive use injuries. Now let me be careful here. There is not some automatic VA rule that says, you have an air assault badge or parachutist badge, therefore your joints are service connected. That is not the rule. But veterans can still have viable direct service connection claims for these conditions, even without treatment notes in service, if the total evidence makes sense. This is especially relevant for veterans whose service involved repeated impact, hard landings, heavy rucking, airborne operations, fast roping, vehicle wear and tear, physical training, combatives, or years of repetitive strain. Your job is to show what your body went through in service, what condition you have now, and why the current problem is linked to that history. Here is a stronger way to frame it. I am claiming a lumbar spine condition due to repetitive physical trauma during service. While serving as MOS or unit from dates, I performed parachute operations, repeated hard landings, heavy ruck marches, carrying heavy loads, repetitive lifting, or vehicle operations. I did not always seek treatment at the time, but the strain and symptoms began during service and continued afterward. That is stronger because it does not pretend there is a presumption where there isn't one. Now, what strengthens these claims? Current imaging when appropriate. A clear diagnosis. Lay evidence describing onset and continuity. Personnel records or service history supporting the physical demands. Buddy statements when available. And, in some cases, a medical opinion linking the current condition to service. That is how you build these claims honestly. And if both sides are affected, like both knees or both ankles, make sure both are properly evaluated and claimed if the evidence supports it. Fourth, presumptive claims. This is where the law is different. A presumptive condition means VA has already recognized a legal connection between a qualifying exposure or place of service and certain diagnoses. That does not mean automatic approval. It means you may not need to prove the medical causation the same way you would in a normal direct service connection claim. You still need the diagnosis. You still need the qualifying service. And you still need to file it correctly. Let's hit the main categories. First, Agent Orange presumptives. VA recognizes presumptive exposure and presumptive conditions for certain veterans who served in qualifying locations, including Vietnam and other qualifying locations added later. That list includes conditions such as type 2 diabetes, ischemic heart disease, prostate cancer, Parkinson's disease or Parkinsonism, and hypertension, among others. So if a veteran has a qualifying diagnosis in qualifying service in a recognized location and time frame, the claim may be much more straightforward than a normal nexus fight. Next, Camp Lejeune presumptives. Details matter here. A veteran generally must have served at Camp Lejeune or MCAS New River for at least 30 total days between August 1st, 1953 and December 31st, 1987. And have one of the recognized presumptive conditions. That is much more precise than simply saying, I was at Lejeune. Then there are Gulf War and Southwest Asia claims. This area has more than one lane. VA recognizes certain presumptions for conditions like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and certain medically unexplained chronic multi-symptom illnesses, or functional gastrointestinal disorders, depending on the facts. Then there are PACT Act and toxic exposure presumptives. This is where people often mix categories together. Conditions like asthma, chronic rhinitis, chronic sinusitis, COPD, emphysema, pulmonary fibrosis, and other listed respiratory conditions are better described as toxic exposure presumptives under current VA rules tied to burn pits and related exposures. So keep these categories clean. Do not blend everything together. And do not tell veterans if you were there, you automatically win. That is not how it works. Say this instead. If you served in a qualifying location during a qualifying period and now have a recognized presumptive condition, you may not need to prove the medical link the same way you would in a standard direct service connection claim. That is the safer way to explain it. Fifth and final point. A lot of veterans do not lose because the claim was fake. They lose because the claim was vague. Bad claim wording sounds like this. I have tinnitus. Better wording sounds like this. I am claiming tinnitus due to repeated hazardous noise exposure during military service while serving as MOS from dates, with symptoms that began during or after that exposure and have continued. Bad wording sounds like this. I have PTSD. Better wording sounds like this. I am claiming PTSD related to combat experiences, fear-based stressors, or personal assault, with current symptoms including symptoms, and I am submitting evidence showing how the stressor fits my service. Bad wording sounds like this. My knees are bad. Better wording sounds like this. I am claiming right and left knee conditions due to repetitive physical strain during service, including specific duties, with symptoms beginning in service and continuing afterward. See the difference? The stronger version gives VA a theory. It tells them what the condition is, what happened in service, why you believe they are connected, and what evidence you are pointing them to. Now, one more correction that matters. Do not tell veterans your personal statement is the nexus. Sometimes lay evidence is powerful. Sometimes it helps a lot. Sometimes it is enough to establish key facts. But for many claims, especially medically complex ones, the nexus question may still require medical evidence or a favorable examiner opinion. So a better message is this. Your personal statement helps explain the in-service event, the onset of symptoms, and the continuity. It helps frame the claim clearly. But depending on the condition, medical evidence may still be critical. That is much more accurate. Let's bring it home. Just because something is not in your service treatment records does not automatically mean you cannot win the claim. We covered 5 situations veterans need to understand. Tinnitus and noise exposure claims. PTSD claims under different VA rules. Direct musculoskeletal claims supported by service history and lay evidence. True presumptive claims. And clear claim wording that makes the theory understandable from day one. Here's your challenge. Pick one condition you believe may be tied to your service. Then write out 4 things. What is the condition? What happened in service? When did the symptoms begin? And what evidence do you already have? Start there. Not with emotion. Not with guesswork. With facts. That is how stronger claims get built. If this video helped you, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe so you do not miss the next one. And share this with another veteran who still believes, if it's not in my records, I'm out of luck. That is not always true. But the claim has to be built the right way. Stay strong. Stay informed. And remember, don't be frustrated. Get educated. My goal is never to mislead, only to empower you with accurate, honest, and actionable information. God bless.